Hello everyone, it's Nick Lawson with CDC Take Charge Software, and this will be our first lesson in having fun with graphics and animation in Alpha software. As you can see, I have a form on the screen designed in Alpha software, and when I click the button that says Bounce Ball, you see a ball bouncing on the screen. If I click the button that says Draw a Line, you see a line drawn on the screen down here. If I take and hit the left arrow key, my paddle moves to the left. If the right arrow key, my paddle moves to the right. Now this is some pretty basic animation, uh, and we're going to look at how that's done here in just a second. In addition to what you're seeing here, if you look at our clock face, you'll notice that as the second hand advances around the clock, the colors on the hands for both the seconds, the minutes, and the hours change in variation of the central color. On our old clock, if you go back and look at one of those, the hands were solid colors. You had red, blue, and gray. Now, we accomplish this simply by changing the multiplier value on the fade function on the owner draw on initiate event of the clock face. Now, let's look at the code that's on this page here. Here we are. Typically, when you're working with graphics, uh, you need to know some basic things. One, all objects are relative in position on the form to the form. They're not relative to the window. They're not relative to the Alpha 5 application. They're relative to the form. So, in this particular example, you see the ball up here. If I increase the size of the form, the ball moves to a new position. If I bring it back down, same thing, it goes back because it's relative to the form. Same thing with the line, same thing with the paddle. The other thing you need to be aware of is that if you want to automate an object moving, you have to change one of its many properties. Uh, Typically, all objects have an anchor point. They have a size, a width and a height. They have a length in the case of a line. And they have a distance from the edge of the frame and the top of the frame of the form. So by controlling these values, we're able to modify or make appear that the object is in fact moving. Let's look at the paddle movement. Now that's on the on key event of the form. So if I right click and I go to events and I come down to on key, take a second for it to load. You will see that we're using the user key dot value. If it's left, then we want to tell it that it's handled as true, and in the event that the key is held down, we want the object to move to the left as long as the leftmost position is greater than 1.25. Once it hits 1.25, it stops moving left. If we move it to the right, we want the object to be less than or equal to 7.25, which is the rightmost position. When we move the object, we're moving it in increments of 0.15. That kind of gives it kind of a smooth scroll. So when I hold the button down, it scrolls to the left. Hold the other button down, it scrolls to the right. Pretty simple. Now let's look at the bounce ball. Again, it's the on event. So we're actually using two events here. We're using the on push of the button to set some variables and to set the object position to begin with. Then we also take and set it to visible because it's hidden up to that point. The other event that we use is the timer event for the form. Now a timer event will run continuously if set unless you have some sort of a value or trigger event that turns it on and off. In our case, we set a variable called DL and we're saying that it equals bounce ball. So if I go over here to my timer event, the second choice for DL is bounce ball. So now bounce ball will bounce as long as it says bounce ball and as long as the variable x bounce is less than and equal to 15, which means it'll bounce 15 times in sequence and then stop. Now, what gives it the effect that it's bouncing and going back up a certain distance and coming down and slowly bouncing less and less and less until it comes to a complete rest is we reduced the upward length to be 75% of the original down length. So our down length we set as a variable, x length, to be 5.05. 75% of that is the first upward movement. Then the next time, when it hits the bottom of the page and goes backwards up, it takes and reduces that to 75% of the initial 75%, so forth and so on until the ball comes to rest. Each time we move the ball, we're moving it at a size of 0.21. We move it down as a positive because it starts from the top of the screen and increases in value as it goes down. And we move it as a negative going back up. That's pretty much it. Now on the draw line, we use the anchor point and the width. So we say as long as the object width is less than and equal to 6.75, we want to extend the width times the length plus 1.25. Now, the on-timer event needs a value to tell it how many times it needs to, or how frequent it needs to run. That's done on the property page of the form. Here, under the tab on the form, you have time interval in seconds. So I'm setting it to 5/1000ths of a second. That works pretty fast, and that way the object seems to scroll pretty quickly. There you have it. Now, all that in itself, you say, well, what can I do with all this stuff? Well, there's plenty of things. Let's say you have an application that's password protected. Well, then you want some sort of a screensaver or something to keep the screen busy while people aren't logged in. And that would this is a way to do a visual thing that works with the logo of the company, or plays with text, or plays with objects, or just creates a general screensaver. Um, you could have, when they open up a form, the logo scroll in from the left or top down or right over or bottom up. And you could draw lines to accent things. You can put increasing drop shadow sizes on fonts. You can change the font look and style. You can do anything that you want to jazz up your application and make it more attractively appealing to your customer. This brings value to your application. Okay, now look at the objects we created so far. We have a ball, we have a line, and we have a paddle. What's that sound like? What it sounds like to me is a Pong game. So on our next lesson, that's what we'll be looking at, how to take and use these values in conjunction to play Pong. That's it for today. If you want to see this information in greater detail, go to our blog at cdctakecharge.wordpress.com and you'll be able to read it right there. It'll be up there by tomorrow. Thanks a lot and have a great day.